So, about 8, 9 months ago, I made a heated rivalry video where I traced the timeline for events as they played out in the show. Because, like I stated in that video, there is a strong importance in viewers paying attention to the timestamps as they pop up on screen, because it's a clear visual way to highlight the timeline of Shane and Ilya and Scott and Kip's relationship, using that to give us a further understanding of how time is passing for these characters and the role time is playing in their lives via the documentation of their unfolding relationships. Now, when I made that video, I did a thing where right out the jump, I made a big boo boo, a nasty, stinking ass boo boo, in that my ass had my mouth run way too fast for my brain, that I accidentally aged Ilya and Shane by 2 whole ass years. What was I thinking? I don't know, like the fuck? By the time I realized the ginormous mistake I'd made, the video was already live, and the only thing I could do was put up a pinned comment whilst telling myself that when the season finally ends, I will make a new timeline for the entire season, which would be the correction necessary for the stinking, ginormous boo boo I had made in the first video. Now, I am sure that a lot of you are probably thinking, girl, if the plan was for your ass to fix the error after the season was done, didn't it wrap up in like January, which was what? February, March, April, May, June, July, August, 7 whole last months ago? And to that, I will say yes. Blame it on a combination of my ADHD, which meant my procrastination was through the roof, and I kept telling myself I will get to it. And next thing I knew, time had gone, and then the angel, because for real, at David Biddle P1X is a literal angel to me at this moment, dropped a comment asking, hey, could you maybe, I don't know, edit and repost this video as a response to my pinned, I made a whoopsie comment on the timeline video, and it felt like a jolt from the very heavens itself. Thank you, David, for giving me the kick in the behind I needed to finally fix this wrong. I will unlist the old video, so this is the only one that pops up on my feed. New viewers will have no idea about the massive stinker I'd made of things, and eventually time would even erase the memories of those of you who had seen the first version of this video. But you, dearest David,
You're the real MVP.
now, before I start rambling about the timeline with Opally pop-ups on screen, because I am sorry, your girl doesn't have a whiteboard or a clicker that I can use to accurately show off the timeline the way other YouTubers do with this sort of things. I am broke, I know, and it is my birthday next Friday. I don't want to be broke, but alas, we are working with what we have. Fuck the present systems that exist that make being able to afford groceries hard as fuck in this present global economy. But yes, away from my grumbling ass, I would like to say a quick thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena and Holly, Sherry and Kat for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses to mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, for example, early access to videos like this one, weekly exclusive content, a monthly stream tossed into the mix, or even get a shout out, the link to join us is in the description bar. Now, back to the timeline of things, where events as they play out kick off in December of 2008, when Shane and Ilya meet for the very first time at the International Prospect Cup in Regina, Saskatchewan. They are at this point 17 years old. Look at my baby, so young. Already feeling that attraction and not being able to name it just yet. Shane is a month older than Ilya. His birthday is on May 10th. Ilya's birthday is June 15th. Nope, this is not mentioned in the show or in the books. Shout out to Reddit user at Heavy Ad 1227 who did catch when Rachel was tweeting about both their birthdays back when she was still on Twitter, when it was actually still Twitter before a certain muskrat finagled his way into buying and ruining it. Anyway, every ad 1227 did us is solid by not only saving said screenshots before Rachel left the platform, but they also got permission from her via an AMA, Ask Me Anything, to share it with the fandom, and they got the okay from Rachel. So, for real, at every ad 1227.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
But as I was saying, at this point, both of them, in December of 2008, both Shane and Ilya are still 17. babies, the both of them. And yes, Ilya is already besotted with Shane's freckles the minute they first met and he saw them. I mean, look at how earnest he is at their meet cute. Shane Hollander is adorable as fuck. Team Russia, though, wins the 2008 International Prospect Cup to Shane's pain. We then hop forward to June 2009. Ilya and Shane meet once again, this time around in Los Angeles, as they are drafted into the NHL as the number 1 and 2 draft, respectively. And keeping in mind their birthdays, they are now both 18 years old at this point. Yes, I know we aren't told when exactly in June 2009 this falls, but the draft usually falls at the latter part of the month. So technically, Ilya would have had his birthday at this point. Shane's, of course, is a foregone conclusion. He is a May baby after all. But as I was saying, back to draft day, they are both 18, and this is when we have the moment at the gym where we get to see that their sheer competitiveness is perfectly aligned and further drives the attraction that they aren't even able to hide. I mean, Shane's attraction is visibly clear on screen for the first time at the gym. Same with Ilya's, even though, like I said, you can see him being intrigued and so fascinated at their first meeting after the few guarded moments when Shane first shows up. Ilya, of course, covers it up with his teasing and needling of Shane, which we come to learn is basically his MO at the start of their relationship. December 2009, Shane and Ilya meet at their second International Prospect Cup, this time around in Ottawa, Ontario. Canada cinches the win for this one. They are both still 18 years old, and this is the first time we see on screen that Alexei insists on shaking down his baby brother for money and has been doing so ever since Ilya got drafted some 6 months prior and gotten the cash from his first signing up with the Raiders. This is also when we learn just how exacting Grigory piece of shit Rozanov is on his son, like further confirming it after the draft. June 2010, Shane and Ilya meet in Toronto to have an ad shoot together, which Ilya finagled his way into having with Shane, confirming that he is the one as the number 1 draft pick who had the more professional capital of the two of them at this point and had insisted on having Shane film the ad with him after they had done shooting the commercial. We get their shower scene together, followed by their first kiss and their first sexual encounter. They are both 19 years of age by this point. September/October 2010, Shane and Ilya are still 19 and they get to have their first NHL game against each other in Montreal. This is when we see the official start of their rivalry that the NHL will promote throughout the course of their career. This is the big leagues at this point, separate from the little rivalries that had been pushed before they both got signed on. In this first game against each other, Montreal wins over Boston, and we get on-screen mention of the onset of Ilya's father dementia. Now, the reason why I say this happens around September/October is because although the timestamp says 3 months after the shoot, which happened in June, which in turn should have put the game in September, I think this was an error and it should have been said 4 months later instead, because back at the end of the second International Prospect Cup that Shane and Ilya had played against each other, during the handshake between the teams, Shane had told Ilya that he would see him in October, which most likely alluded to their first game against each other. They meet earlier than planned because Ilya, of course, pulled his strings to have the ad campaign feature both the number 1 and 2 pick of the drafts in order to boost the success of the campaign, which was probably how he convinced the agency to agree to having Shane on board as well. But yes, they were meant to meet in October, which is why I am more inclined to it being 4 months after the shoot and not 3. Now, February 2011, we have the All Stars weekend and the press conference that precedes it. This is also our introduction to Scott, who is on Shane's All Star team. We see the league continue to push the Hollander Rozanov rivalry. It is good for sales after all. This is when Shane and Ilya have another sexual encounter. For context, this is 8 months after the first and last one they had back in June of 2010. They are both still 19. Ilya expresses his desire to go all the way with Shane. Shane is a bit hesitant as he would rather it happen when they have a bit more privacy. This is when they exchange phone numbers for the first time 2 years after their first meeting. Now, still in February 2011, the game between Montreal and Boston is cancelled due to a snowstorm, and Shane and Ilya's initial plans to meet up after their game falls apart. This, though, is when we are first introduced to Best Girl Svetlana on screen, and also when Shane and Aiden's friendship officially kicks off when the latter invites him over to his home where Jackie is eager to be the first wag to feed Shane. June 2011, we have the Major League Hockey Awards night in Vegas. Shane wins Rookie of the Year. He and Ilya have the terse conversation on the roof, followed by some kissing, and Shane walks away with Ilya saying he will see him the next season. At this point, they have now officially left their teenagers behind and are both 20. Summer of 2011, Shane and Ilya stay in contact via texting during the breaks between season. Ilya gives a quasi apology, not really apology, about Vegas. Both Shane and Ilya are still 20. Fall of 2011, we have a match between Montreal and Boston in Montreal. Montreal wins. Ilya reaches out to Shane about their plans to have sex. Shane is not ready yet and ignores him. Winter 2011, there is another game between Montreal and Boston, this time around in Boston. Ilya once again texts Shane. He's still going for a teasing tone to let Shane know that he is still interested, but there is no dice. I feel the need to bring this up because I think this sequence of events is a great way to show your interest in a potential partner without it seeming like you're trying to pressurize them into absolutely having sex with you immediately. Like Ilya is able to maintain a I am still interested vibe without veering into this dude is creepy and pushy territory. I'm just saying some adults need to learn from this fictional 20-year-old. Now, spring 2012, Boston makes it to the playoffs. Montreal is out for the count. Shane is still ignoring Ilya's message, and they are both still 20. I also think it is important for me to state at this point that the teams basically play against each other a couple of times, usually 3 times during the hockey seasons before the playoffs. So just to keep that in mind, it seems like Ilya is constantly texting Shane, but he's only doing that like once every couple of months when Boston and Montreal are playing against each other. Outside of that, he's not asking to meet. So there is a sufficient time gap between each ready for this D text to send Shane prior to them having sex for the first time. Now, fall 2012, Shane and Ilya continue to text. Shane is now visibly wavering, but still hasn't agreed quite yet to the timing for their first time together. They are now both 21. Winter, more flirting, still no dice. Spring 2013, more flirting, more facing off between Boston and Montreal, still no dice. Fall 2013, Montreal and Boston face off in Montreal. Montreal wins. Shane finally texts Ilya with the address of where to meet on the property he purchased just for them to have sex in because, of course, Shane Hollander basically purchases a sex condo. They have penetrative sex for the first time 2 years after their last rendezvous. They are at this point both 22 years old. Still fall of 2013, specifically October 2013, Scott meets Kip at Straw and Barry gives him tickets to watch him play, plays against both Boston and Montreal, and officially kicks off his relationship with Kip. December 2013, Helena confronts Kip about being in love with Scott and how he's been shutting himself out of his community. And Kip's dad basically confirms that he has not been home since he sort of moved in with Scott. Clearly, the two of them were having their U-Haul lesbian moment, at least until we have the Equinox Gala when Scott and Kip break up or take a break, depending on which part of the fandom you ask. Some people think it was just a brief separation and then they got back together shortly afterwards. I am of the opinion that it was a full-on breakup until events as they played out at the end of episode 5. But we all have our thoughts on exactly what happened. Now, either way, Kip heads back to his father's apartment, crying in his father's arms, and we later see him having his birthday celebration surrounded by his friends and his community, while Scott watches from the outside, clearly yearning for Kip and the community he brings with him, but being unable to take that step. He instead chooses to continue to hide, to step away, which, we see reflected in the smoothie socks being hidden beneath the more acceptable hockey player socks. Which brings us to February 2014, Sochi Olympics. Ilya's father's dementia worsens. It's now been 4 years since his symptoms first started to show, which means it's been 4 years of Ilya watching his father slowly lose his mind and carrying the burden of providing for his family whilst dealing with everything his father and Alexei bring. It's a couple of months since Shane and Ilya's first time. They haven't really met ever since. It's also been 2 months since Scott and Kip broke up / took a break, and Shane and Ilya are still 22. I keep bringing up the age because it puts their interaction, especially at the early part of their relationship, into context with regards how Ilya was reacting, for example, is dealing with so much that a typical 22-year-old should not have to shoulder. I say this as someone who became the sole provider of my stay at home mom when my dad died barely 5 months after my 22nd birthday. It can and is a lot. So, yes, Ilya was a dick in Russia, but there were clear reasons. I would add the what you missed about Russia video to my list of upcoming HR content, so keep an eye out for that. Now, on to spring 2014. Ilya leads the Boston Raiders to win his first ever Stanley Cup. At this point, we established that he is still going no contact with Shane ever since Russia. Summer 2014, we are back for the MLH award season in Las Vegas. Shane and Ilya present the most sportsman-like player award. We have the Vegas scene, almost 1 year since their first time together, which when you put it into context, it makes sense why Shane is so thirsty in that bathroom with its filthy floors, and also explains why he is reeling because of the no kiss situation that happened in the hotel room afterwards. I mean, the poor boy was suffering from the whiplash of, a full on drought, then Ilya going total dumb and retracting all sorts of emotional connection, which is vastly different from the only other experience Shane had had with Ilya up until that point, i.e., their first time together. By now, at this point, they are 23 years old. After the Vegas night, they maintained friendly communication throughout the rest of the summer. Hell, Shane's the first to message Ilya telling him to have a great summer. And we see Ilya partying it up all summer long while Shane reads hockey related books and does a whole slew of ads. Fall 2014, the new season starts, and we see Shane and Ilya hook up a ton amidst the games they play against each other, driving home the fact that these two only actually meet and hook up a couple of times during the entire season. Now, we don't get the exact pop up date, but since we know that the awards night happens in June, we can assume that the finals happens in June as well. So June 2015, Shane wins his first ever Stanley Cup a year after Ilya won for Boston. At this point, they are both 24 years old. Summer 2015 comes around, and aside from the both of them working out in order to keep their bodies in shape to an extent for when the new season would start, they once again take vastly different path in how they enjoy the summer break in between the seasons. Ilya continues to party it up, and Shane is studying his hockey books and doing ads. When the new season starts, they of course pick things up by hooking up whenever Montreal and Boston play against each other, as is their usual. June 2016, Shane wins his second Stanley Cup. That is a back to back win and the first the Metros have ever had. The announcers are predicting at this point that it looks like it is going to be a dynasty, which anyway, Shane and Ilya are now 25 years old. At this point, it has been 8 years since they first met, 6 years since their first sexual encounter, and 3 years since they actually started fucking. Summer of 2016 sees what starts as the usual, i.e., they are both still teasing and messaging each other through the break. Shane and Ilya stay working out to keep their bodies in good condition, and Shane is continuing with his ads in between moments where he's working on setting the cottage to rights with his father, David, by his side. Ilya, on the other hand, is not parting it like he used to. He's instead caring for Gregory, whose dementia is getting worse. And even when Ilya is at the club, we are meant to deduce that his mind is on Shane, seeing that he ignores all the women who come up to him, hoping for his attention. Hell, even Svetlana notices Ilya's distraction and brings up the potential of him now having something serious going on with, say, Jane, the person he's been texting for years, which Ilya, of course, denies. And then fall of 2016 comes around. Games are back in session, which means that Ilya and Shane are back to hooking up, except things get slightly complicated. We have the tuna melt scene where Ilya makes Shane a tuna melt, offers him ginger ale. They make out, call each other by their first names, which implies that a line has been crossed. Shane spooks and bolts, and next thing he meets Rose. Once again, I need to reiterate, Shane and Ilya are both still 25. All of this, mind you, is happening at the start of the season. That is fall of 2016. I think it is important to note this because the timeline between when Shane first meets Rose, starts dating her as his girlfriend, we have the moment in the club, then Shane and Rose's first sexual encounter, and then the one after that, after which they have the talk and Shane comes out to Rose, which leads to them effectively breaking up. All of this is between fall of 2016 and most of winter of 2017 because after E and Rose break up, we then have the All Stars game in February of 2017. So their separation only occurred within the space of some months. Now, we have the All Stars game. Shane officially comes out to a laughing Ilya. They have this moment of vulnerability, and clearly their relationship is back in gear with slightly different stakes because now they both know that their feelings have gotten into the mix and that it is somewhat reciprocated. Of course, there is no declaration of love just yet, but feelings are there. Now, remember the whole bit of two teams usually playing three times or three games against each other in the course of the season leading up to the playoffs. I'm using that to extrapolate the timeline since we don't really get timestamps anymore at this point. So, the first Montreal Boston game of the 2016-2017 season happened around the tuna melt period. The second was when Shane and Rose were dating, which is the game that she couldn't make it to, but which he played abysmally at, hence why he went clubbing with Rose and Ilya, then came to the club later on with his teammates. Now, the third game is the one with the Montreal goes home crying line, please, please, which happens after he and Shane had hooked up hours prior, of course. And it is after that game that Ilya gets the call about Grigory's passing, which has him fly to Russia to bury his father. And he acknowledges that it isn't home anymore, with Shane being present for him on the other side of the world, on a whole other continent, and Ilya making his confession in Russian. Now, after Ilya buries Gregory and returns, the Raiders meet the Metros. Now, clearly, they've already had their three games, so this is confirmation that both the Raiders and the Metros made it to the playoffs, which would put the timeline at sometime between April/May 2017. I say April/May because we know what happens in this game. Shane gets hit by Marlowe, he gets a concussion and a fractured bone, which puts him out of the game, effectively taking the Metros off of the running in the playoffs because their team is centered around Shane. The Raiders continue in the playoffs, as we know, but with Ilya's injury, which Yuna calls, they get kicked out by the Admirals, who therefore make it to the finals, which brings us back to Scott. Now, this is where a lot of people who are team Scott and Kip, separated briefly but got back together, are insistent about the state of things because, as we know, in the finals, the Admirals win and Scott gets to come out by encouraging Kip to join him on the ice, where he then proceeds to kiss him before all the eyes and the cameras trained on them. Now, the argument is that if they truly had broken up, it makes no sense that Kip would just be present with his father and Elena at Scott's game and would just kiss him back right there with no hesitation. I am still team. I think they were broken up, but this was a big moment for Scott and Kip, who is a decent guy. Kip being a decent guy, right? Who loves Scott, who wanted to be there for him. It's a best out of seven game. And if the Admirals have already won three of their games, then they know that there's a high probability that this upcoming one, the fourth one, would cinch them the cup. And so Scott gets the tickets for Kip to come along with his dad and his best friend, and Kip shows up. Now, why does Kip kiss him when it all goes down with no explanation necessary? Well, the only reason they broke up was because Kip doesn't want to be in the closet again. Scott doing this publicly is clearly him standing out in the open with Kip, which is what Kip had always wanted. And before anybody says, well, Kip didn't sign up for the publicity of being with Scott at that point in time, like, let us all be real. He's dating a hockey legend. He already knows what to expect. So yeah, that is Scott and Kip. The finals and the MLH awards that takes place shortly afterwards happen in June of 2017, which then kicks off the summer break, meaning we get the cottage. And since this is June, it effectively puts Shane and Ilya at 26 years old, which is when they officially commit in their relationships via exchanging I love yous, Ilya telling Shane about his mother, and Shane and Ilya coming out to Shane's parents, which marks the end of the first season. Gods. That is a lot. Hopefully, I did not bore you all with my rehashing of things you already know. But if anyone watches this and it keeps them and it helps them with keeping track of the timeline of the show, because I do know the timestamps pop up too quickly in the episodes and not everybody was sitting there with pen in hand to track everything. So if this helps even just one person, I will consider this a job well done and time well spent. So yeah, please like this video if you haven't done so yet. Drop all your comments. I love reading them. Share this video if you can to someone who might appreciate it. It helps grow my channel and brings new people, new subscribers my way. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might potentially be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.